A very good afternoon to all of you. Let's come back to the same session, that is pre-connect, and as promised by KSG, we are again going through the sessions of polity. In the last session, we discussed about types of amendment and majority, and we saw that how the questions are being asked in examination and how can we expect the questions again. Today, we are going to see one more topic, one of the most important topics of this polity. This may be around 80 words, but if you see these 80 words, that is preamble to the Constitution of India, you will see that almost every year UPSC keeps on asking questions from these sections. And if you see these topics, this section, that is preamble to the Constitution of India, you will see that almost on all the things mentioned in this preamble, UPSC has asked the question. Last to last year, they even asked the questions on this footnote which is given here, that is 1 and 2. So, if you talk about this preamble to the Constitution of India, we can expect a question every year from this section. If you talk about the questions from this preamble, I'll just show the questions also. But before starting with the questions, I would at first like to show you the themes from where questions are being asked. So, they can ask the questions on basic concepts associated with this. That is the terminologies mentioned in this. They can also ask the question with reference to what do we get from this preamble. They can ask a question with reference to how this preamble became a part of the Constitution, that is it a part of the Constitution or not a part of the Constitution. They can also ask the philosophies associated with this preamble. If you see the concept of philosophy or the background of the Constitution, you can divide this background into two different parts. The first part is historical background of Indian Constitution, where we go through various acts and finally to the Constitution of India. In the same manner, we also have the concept of philosophical background of the Constitution. And if you go through this philosophical background of the Constitution, you will automatically come to the concept of preamble to the Constitution of India. So, there are two sections with reference to this Constitution. The first section is historical background and the second section is philosophical background. And from these two sections, you will see that questions are being asked again and again. We will see the historical background in the coming sessions. Today, we are going to start with this philosophical background of the Constitution of India, and which automatically comes up with this preamble to the Constitution of India. If you talk about this preamble, then do we need to memorize this preamble? Comes a question. Do we need to see all the concepts associated with this? But when you go through the questions of preamble, you will see that you don't need to memorize this preamble. You just need to see that what are the terms mentioned here and how these terms relate in the Constitution of India. What is the legal status of this preamble to the Constitution of India? Let us at first see some questions and then we will see some concept associated with this preamble also. So let us see the questions. The preamble to the Constitution of India is a part of the Constitution but has no legal effect. Not a part of the Constitution and has no legal effect either. A part of the Constitution and has the same legal effect as any other part. A part of the Constitution but has no legal effect independently of other parts. Now see, if you see this question, you can understand the philosophy associated with this question. These philosophical questions and their answers change according to the options. So if you had no D option, then the answer would have been something else. But if we have this option D, the answer would be automatically D. That is, preamble is a part of the Constitution, there is no doubt with that. But what about the legality of this preamble? If you talk about this legality of the preamble, then the question comes into existence. Like, there have been various judgments associated with this preamble also. In the Berry Union case, it was specified that preamble is not an integral part of the Constitution. However, in Keshwanand Bharti case, it was clearly specified that preamble is an integral part of the Constitution. And there have been various issues associated with this part of the Constitution also. Like, when you talk about this story of part of the Constitution, certain concept comes into existence automatically. For example, if you talk about this part of the Constitution, then if you see the status of this preamble, you will see that preamble is something which is pasted on the Constitution. Actually, the story with reference to this preamble was that when Dr. Ambedkar was presenting this preamble, then somebody said from behind, "Arey wo Nehru ji wala kahan hai?" And then Ambedkar sahab took something out from the pocket and pasted it on the Constitution. So, if this is the Constitution of India, then the preamble is pasted on this. And this became the story that is it a part of the Constitution? Just for example, you buy a notebook and you see in that notebook that Rohit Sharma's image, Sharma ji ka Londa, or Virat Kohli's image or Sachin Tendulkar's image is on the top of that a notebook. When it is on the top of that notebook, then does Shah Rukh Khan or Sachin Tendulkar or Rohit Sharma or any other personality becomes a part of that notebook? And this was the question. However, through various judgments, it has been specified that preamble is an integral part of the Constitution. However, being an integral part doesn't mean it is also justiciable. So, preamble is not justiciable, but independently it is not justiciable. If we relate it with other parts of the Constitution, you will see that all the terms mentioned in the preamble have some backing in the Constitution also. So, this preamble gives you the philosophy of this whole Constitution. Let's see some more questions. The point is, if you see these questions, you will see that the questions are very simple, and almost every year you will see some question associated with this. So this, see the next question. The mind of the makers of the Constitution of India is reflected in which of the following? Obviously, we are talking about this topic preamble, so the answer would be preamble only. But we have to understand these types of questions very clearly. Now, if you see the origin of this preamble, when we started this session, we discussed that which type of questions are being asked. So when you talk about this preamble is based on objective resolution. And what was that objective resolution? That was a gift from the freedom fighters to the assembly. However, many of them were part of this assembly also, but that was a gift from the freedom fighters, the people who made India independent. So they gave this objective resolution mainly from the point of view of Jawaharlal Nehru. This objective resolution was presented to the assembly, and it was passed in the assembly. The preamble to the Constitution of India is based on that objective resolution only, and that is why it has also been asked that this preamble to the Constitution of India is whose preamble. And there have been books which specifies that this preamble is Nehru's preamble or Ambedkar's preamble. However, we will go through this Nehru's point of view, as UPSC has given that answer only. See some more questions. Now, we have specified the questions in such a manner that we have given different themes associated with this question preamble. So, see this question again. Which one of the following objectives is not embodied in the preamble to the Constitution of India? Now, to understand this question, you have to see the preamble again. I'll just show you the preamble again so that we understand this concept very clearly. If you see this preamble again, just see the question. The question here is about which one of the following objectives is not embedded in the preamble to the Constitution of India. Now, if you talk about the objectives, then automatically the question comes that what do we get from this preamble? If you see this preamble to the Constitution of India, this preamble gives you certain basic concepts. Like, at first, it gives you the source. And what is the source? The source is we, the people of India. So, when you talk about this Constitution, then it comes from the people of India. However, when we talk about this we, the people of India, we have to understand one more concept associated with it. That is, this was not subject to referendum. I hope you guys understand the meaning of referendum also, the device of direct democracy. So, this source is we, the people of India, but this preamble or the Constitution was not subject to referendum. Again, the first thing which we get from this preamble is source. Then it gives us the nature of Indian state. And the nature of Indian state is very simple, that is sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic. A country which is republic, and which type of republic? Sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic. And after that, we get the objectives here. And the objectives are justice, liberty, equality, and fraternity. So, these are the objectives. Now, see the question here. However, understand one more concept, and finally it gives us this date, that is date of adoption and enactment of this Constitution. If you talk about date of adoption and enactment, you have to understand the concept very clearly, that the Constitution specifies 26th November 1949 as the date of adoption and enactment of this Constitution. And when we talk about this commencement of the Constitution, then the date would be 26th of January. I hope you guys know the importance of this date, 26th of January, why we chose this date as the commencement of the Constitution date. Some parts of the Constitution commence from this very date, that is 26th of November 1949. But the final date is 26th of January 1950, which is celebrated as the Republic Day. Again, when you talk about the concept of Republic Day, I hope you guys understand the meaning of differences between this hosting the national flag and unfurling the national flag. Can anybody let me know on 26th of January what happens? Do we host the national flag or do we unfurl the national flag? The concepts are very interesting. The difference between this hosting the national flag and unfurling the national flag. This issue of national flag has been in news since last 1 year, so we can expect a question from this national flag also. Just go through this evolution of national flag, how this national flag evolved in India. And what is the difference between this 26th of January and 15th of August? You guys might have seen in your school days that how this happens, unfurling the national flag or hosting national flag. Just go through that difference. It's really interesting. Let's come back to the question again. So the question is which one of the following objectives is not embedded in the preamble to the Constitution of India? Liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith and worship. Economic liberty, liberty of expression, liberty of belief. So when you talk about this liberty, then the concept is liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith and worship. There is no concept of economic liberty as mentioned by you people, that the answer is B only. Let's come back to some more questions. Economic justice, the objective of Constitution has been as one of the Indian Constitution provided in. So if you talk about this economic justice, let's come back to the preamble again. Now these questions, if you see these questions are directly from the terms mentioned in the preamble. So if you talk about this justice, then the concept is social, economic and political. Liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith and worship. Equality of status and of opportunity. So let's see this question here. It specifies about economic justice. So the concept of economic justice, where is it mentioned? If you talk about this economic justice, obviously it is mentioned in the preamble, but along with this preamble, where else do we find this concept of economic justice? And here you will come with the concept of DPSP. So whatever concept you are seeing with reference to this preamble, you have to understand that, you have to see that where does it belong from. It is not only the concept of this preamble which we have to see. We have to see that what are the terms specified here, and the terms, whatever term you see, like you see the term republic, you have to understand that what are the constitutional provisions mentioned which relates this concept of republic. If you talk about the concept of fraternity, you have to understand that where in the Constitution we find this term fraternity, and what are the options associated with that also. And this is how you will get the questions in examination on a regular basis. So it is not only the text of this preamble, you have to understand this text of the preamble from the background also. You have to see that where in the Constitution these texts are mentioned. Let's see some more questions. So if you see some more questions, see this question. Which one of the following factors constitutes the best safeguard of liberty in a liberal democracy? Now the point is, we have the term liberty mentioned here in the preamble, liberty. But the point is, this liberty is not only on the basis of this preamble to the Constitution of India, and that is why we specify that when we go through this preamble, we have to see the terms very clearly, that what is the meaning of that term. And you will see that questions are being asked from that only again and again. That is why we see, or we say, that this preamble is not only limited to the terms which are mentioned. You have to understand the philosophies associated with that, and that is why this preamble can also be seen as philosophical background of the Constitution of India. The whole Constitution, the whole philosophy of the Constitution is based on this preamble only. And that is why the judiciary specified once that preamble works as the guiding star. The North Star. I hope you guys know this North Star. When you sit with your grandparents, they may tell you the story of this North Star. So this preamble works as the North Star. That is, whenever there is any ambiguous matter, then the judiciary sees this DPSP as the book of interpretation and the preamble as the guiding star. The preamble guides that how it goes on. So even without being justiciable, the other concept of this preamble becomes important from the point of view of judiciary. So the answer would be separation of power. The committed judiciary, if you see this Sushant, D answer, exactly D. So if you see this committed judiciary, that is not the solution. See the system of committed judiciary which Indira Gandhi demanded at the time of emergency. So committed judiciary means a judiciary which is committed to the executives. However, the judiciary should be committed not to the executives but to the Constitution. So this committed judiciary gives us multiple dimensions. Again, if you move forward to the next section, centralization of power, which will never be a solution in the Constitution of India and the system which we see in the Constitution itself. We have this elected government, not necessary. And finally, separation of powers. So if you have the concept of separation of powers, it will always give you this concept which will safeguard the concept of liberty. Let's see two more questions. Again, see this question. I specified that we have seen the questions from various dimensions, and one of the dimensions is also this footnote which we see here. If you see these footnotes, the question comes from these footnotes only. That is, what was the exact constitutional status of India on 26th of January 1950? If you talk about the exact constitutional status of India with reference to this 26th of January 1950, then we have to see that how this constitution came into existence. That is, if you see this concept, then on 26th of January 1950, what was the constitutional status? And it also gives us the dimension associated with this preamble. That is preamble amendable? Can we amend the preamble? And there can be a question with reference to this also. That is, what is the status of amendability of the preamble? If we talk about the concept of amendability of the preamble, then we have to understand one thing very clearly, that any part of the constitution can be amended. Whatever the part is, that doesn't matter. Any part of the constitution can be amended, excluding this basic structure concept. So excluding this concept of basic structure, we can amend any part of the constitution. What is basic structure? God knows, or the Supreme Court knows. So excluding this concept of basic structure, we can amend any part of the constitution. So if there is something in the preamble which forms this basic structure, that cannot be amended. Otherwise, any part can be amended. And in 2020-2021, a private member's bill was also presented with reference to amending the preamble. That is, the terms which are mentioned here, like we have specified equality, but the demand was that it should not be equality, it should be equity. Let's see some more questions. Anushthan Purohit, Constituent Assembly of India defeated God too. Exactly, dear. I hope you guys know the story how the Constituent Assembly of India defeated God. That is, it started with the term "We the people of India." But when you go through this term in details, "We the people of India," then it was demanded that it should not be "We the people of India." It should be in the name of Gandhi, "We the people of India." However, the Gandhians went against this provision and said that Gandhiji is happy in DPSB only, don't include him here. Then the other demand came into existence that it should start in the name of God. Majority of the provisions of this constitution which we see has been through this debate and discussion, and majorly through this debate and discussion things were done. But on the condition of this in the name of God, it was finally on the issue of voting. And the Constituent Assembly defeated God also in the concept of this voting. A voting was done with reference to that, and finally God lost the election with a good margin, and this "We the people of India" came into existence. There is only one provision on which there was no debate and discussion in the assembly. Everybody agreed to that automatically, and that was the concept of universal adult franchise. Otherwise, whatever concept you see in the Constitution of India, you will see that there was debate and discussion on that. When the concept of universal adult franchise came into existence, everybody agreed to that. Let's see this next question. So we have seen this question. Let's see some more questions. Question number 7. In the context of polity, which one of the following would you accept as the most appropriate definition of liberty? Now, again a philosophical question. That is why I am specifying that when you go through this concept of preamble and the terms mentioned in this preamble, don't limit yourself just to those words which are mentioned in the preamble. You have to understand the background of that term, background of that concept, and that is why this concept of liberty needs to be understood from various dimensions. Some of the terms which are very simple, like the concept of liberty, like this concept of constitutionalism, but you will see that on a regular basis, UPSC has been asking questions from these sections. So when we are going through these concepts, we have to understand these concepts very clearly, and these are being asked again and again in examination. On a regular basis, this is being asked in examination. So when you go through these terms like liberty, you have to understand it from every dimension. Just see this question again. Protection against the tyranny of political rulers doesn't look very satisfying. Absence of restraint, yeah, this looks correct. Opportunity to do whatever one likes, this also looks good. Opportunity to develop oneself fully. Now, here comes this philosophy of the Constitution or philosophy of India. When you talk about this concept of liberty, it simply means this absence of restraint. But when you come to this question, the question is, which one would you accept as the most appropriate definition of liberty? And when you talk about the concept of which one would you accept as the most appropriate definition of liberty, then here comes the concept of opportunity to develop oneself fully. And this concept of liberty, that is absence of restraint, is known as negative liberty, while this concept is known as positive liberty. So when you go through this concept of liberty, we have to understand that how this concept of liberty is related to the concept of India, how this liberty is seen in India. And through this very system, we will see that the philosophies which are mentioned, like the concept liberty, like the concept secularism, like the concept socialism, and there have been questions like that also, that is this socialism, on the basis of this socialism, which type of socialism is in India. So on all the terms which we see in the preamble to the Constitution of India, like all these terms, we have been seeing these questions, and these questions are not limited to preamble only. You have to understand the philosophies of these terms and how these are being used in the Constitution. I hope you guys are getting this point. Let me show some more questions, a couple of questions, and then we will wrap up the session. So again, question: democracy's superior virtue lies in the fact that it calls into activity the intelligence and character of ordinary men and women, the methods for strengthening executive leadership, a superior individual with dynamism and vision, a band of dedicated party workers. Again, this question is on this term democracy and the philosophies associated with this term democracy. So again, this is being proved again and again that whatever term you are seeing here, these terms are not only on the basis of the things which are mentioned here only. You have to understand the background of these concepts, and then you will see a question in prelims examination. So you can expect a question on this term fraternity also. You can expect a question on this term republic also. You can expect a question on this term secularism also. So whatever term you are seeing here, you have to understand the philosophies associated with that term also and how it is being used in the Constitution of India. Let me show you one last question. One of the implications of equality in society is the absence of, again, if you see this question, equality. So in the preamble to the Constitution of India, it is specified that there is something as equality, and equality of status and of opportunity. But when you go deep into this term equality, you have to understand that how this term equality is used in the context of India also. If you see the meaning of equality, it simply means this absence of privileges, that is, everybody should be equal. If you see this term equality simply means absence of privileges, that is, there should not be any privilege to any section. But when you see this concept of equality in India, you will see that it is not only related to the privileges. Apart from this privilege, there are some additional concepts to this equality also. And here comes the importance of the Constitution of India, the philosophies of this Constitution of India. It is not only about equality. We have to make sure that the section which is left behind should also come together. And to make those sections which is left behind come together, we have to see this whole concept. Let me show the last question associated with this preamble. Which one of the following best reflects the nicest appropriate relationship between law and liberty? If there are more laws, there is less liberty. Again, see, the question is on liberty, the term mentioned in the preamble, but it is not directly from the concept of preamble. So whenever you are reading this preamble, always understand that you have to understand the philosophies, and every year you will get at least one question from this section. That is philosophical background of the Constitution. A very important section. And if you see these philosophies, you will see that these philosophies are used at various other places also. That is why we have to see this concept very clearly. Let me read this concept again. Which one of the following reflects the nicest appropriate relationship between law and liberty? If there are more laws, there is less liberty. If there are no laws, there is no liberty. If there is liberty, laws have to be made by the people. If laws are changed too often, liberty is in danger. I am not getting the answer of this question. Pratyaksh B, Sushant C, Aditya B. Sushant, how C dear? Anushtan B. The answer would be B only. If there are no laws, there is no liberty. So, if you see the concept of liberty, automatically all these concepts will come into existence. And this shows the importance of this whole structure. The point is, if you see this concept of preamble again, you will see that questions are being asked from this preamble again and again, and we have to understand that how are we going to read this section preamble. So the first thing is we have to understand that what are the terms mentioned in this preamble and what do we get from this preamble. Again, if you move forward from this concept, then we have to understand that all these terms which are mentioned, what are the legal backup of these terms? That is, apart from this Constitution, what else do we find here? if you move forward to this section, then again we have to understand the concept very clearly, that it is not only about the terms which are mentioned here, it is about the backups in the constitution and what are the legal status with reference to that. So if it is not justiciable, if the preamble is not justiciable, then what is the need of this preamble? How the judiciary sees this preamble and the other terms mentioned here. So from this term V to this term adopt and enact, all these terms needs to be understood very clearly, and you will see that these philosophies will help you at every stage of this examination. This is all we have with reference to this preamble to the Constitution of India. If there is any doubt, I am available here, please let me know. Majorly all of you have answered it correctly only. Aditya, good afternoon. Asutosh, good afternoon. Tomorrow we will see the concept associated with judiciary. We will see the jurisdiction of Supreme Court and on the basis of that we will see the questions. What are the jurisdictions of Supreme Court? Answer of second last question. Second last. One of the implications of equality in society is the absence of privileges. The answer would be A only, Anushtan. The answer would be A only. Absence of privileges in the society. So please go through this concept of preamble very clearly and let us know if we are required at any point. If there is any issue associated with that, let us know. We are always there. As usual, a phone call away only. Tomorrow we will see this concept of judiciary, the jurisdiction of Supreme Court and associated concepts. So third last. This is the third last one. Democracy's superior virtue lies in the fact that it calls into activity the intelligence and character of the ordinary men and women. Next option is the methods for strengthening executive leadership. See, even if you know the answer of a question, please mind one thing very clearly, that we have to understand that just going through the correct option is never a solution. We have to see these questions from the point of view that we have to read all the options. Various times this will happen that you know the answer and then there can be this option A as correct, but even after option A being correct, there can be some other options which may be much correct than option A. So even if you know the answer in prelims examination, please mind this very clearly, that even if you know the answer, that the answer is A, please go through all the options and see the best answer. And this is the basic thing with reference to philosophical questions. So in these philosophical questions on a regular basis, this will happen that A is also answer, C is also the answer, D is also the answer. So even if you know that A is the answer, don't jump on the solution A. Just go through all these terms and then only you will be able to get exact concept associated with that. So we have seen A, B, C, D. If you go through all these, the answer would be A only, as mentioned by Vicky. So the answer would be A only, but go through all these options, then only you will be able to jump to the solution. Please mind this very clearly. Even if you know the answers, don't jump to the answer directly. Read all the options in examination. Clear, Anushtan? Thank you, Pooja, Kuntal, Pratyaksh. So this is all we have for the day. Tomorrow we will meet again and see this jurisdiction of Supreme Court associated with that. Till then, everybody take care. Thank you for the patience. See you soon. Bye-bye.